Okay, so today I have Richard Yan. Am I saying that right? Is it Yan or Yan?
Yeah, and it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So my name is Daniel Rinaldi, and I have written a pilot for a third Avatar series. It's called Avatar: The Spirit Era. It is hopefully going to be a good show. And today I have, like I said, Richard. He is over at Shredder FTW, so you can go and check him out. He's currently doing he did a reaction series for Last Airbender, and now he's doing one for Legend of Korra. Anything you'd like to say so far, Richard?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, guys? Appreciate you having me, Daniel. Yeah, excited to talk about this new series, and as a big fan of the original series, and of course, Legend of Korra as well. I'm excited to see what you come up with.
Cool. Yeah, we'll be getting that in a minute. So yeah, just real quick going over the itinerary. So yeah, we're just going to talk about what we think about the past two series so far, and then we're going to move on to we're going to talk about but mostly what Richard would like to see in a third series, and then we'll get to the concept art. So yeah, so Richard, I see that last video you did for Legend of Korra was the book 3 finale,
That's right.
but that was about 3 weeks ago. So where are you with Legend of Korra?
I took a slight bit of a break from YouTube just to do a student directed show over at with a bunch of my school friends, and there should be a new video coming out this weekend, which I already have set up, and that will be the season 4 sort of debut episode. And in terms of recording, I haven't watched the entirety of season 4 of Korra yet, so I don't. I obviously wouldn't be able to talk about the ending of the whole show or season 4, but I can talk about the first 3 seasons of Korra and of course all of the original series. But yeah, that's about where I am.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'll try not to give away any spoilers. I don't think I probably won't have to. I'll be careful though. So obviously with Legend of Korra, there's a lot of mixed feelings. I saw in your you for like the very first review of the pilot. Title is like it's not bad. So obviously you've heard of the Korra hate and everything. So like, what have you thought of Korra so far? At least like the first 3 seasons.
I am definitely like a fan of it. I don't quite understand where like all the hate comes from because personally I don't think it deserves it. I think it's a pretty good series, and maybe I don't enjoy it as much as the original series, but like it's definitely a series that does not deserve like all the general wave of hate that I've seen online for it. I think maybe that's also just because like maybe I can relate to the characters in the series in Korra more because they're older, they're teenagers, and I think that more mature look is definitely very appealing to me. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's a very different series than Avatar for sure. Really, the only thing that it shares is that it's the world and the lore and all that is the same. But other than that, it's obviously all the settings and all the environments are all very different. But yeah, I've been enjoying it so far.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, me too. I'm pretty much the same way. I really like it, but I like Last Airbender more. I think personally for me, the thing that mostly separates the two series is with Last Airbender, for one thing, you have one conflict throughout the entire series. Obviously, with Korra, you only have one conflict with each season. Obviously, if you have a one conflict throughout, you can like have a lot more setup and a lot more payoff. You can like really go in depth with like ideas and like characters and relationships and stuff. So there's definitely an advantage there, but at the same time, the people behind the show, behind Legend of Korra, they didn't know which season was going to be the last, so they didn't really have a choice. Some of the most famous things people pick on when it comes to Korra, like the most famous thing would have to be the love triangle, especially in book 1 between Korra,
Right.
Mako, and Bulin. Or I guess it's kind of a square because Asami's also in it. I don't know, but I don't know. Did that bother you at all, or what?
I mean, honestly, I watched it, I don't know, like it didn't feel very exciting. It didn't feel as exciting as, say, for example, I was a big Katang fan in the original series, and like that. Like, well, again, that's also a consequence of the storyline being more, spanning 3 seasons as opposed to having a new conflict each season. But also, like, that felt a lot more satisfying when Aang and Katara finally, figured out what they wanted to do in terms of their relationship. And for Korra, like none of the relationships just felt there's not as much gravity. I feel like I didn't really care for much of the relationships, if I'm being honest. I like the characters on their own, but like in terms of the romantic stuff, it wasn't really very appealing to me.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of get what you mean. Personally, I'm not a big Katang fan. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm a what is it called? A Zutara shipper. So
Oh
uh,
really?
yeah, but that's just me. Yeah, I know what you mean. I never really felt the chemistry between, particularly, I never felt the chemistry between Korra and Mako. Like when they're actually dating in book two, it's like it just feels so forced. If I'm being honest, it's funny because like they had the relationships set up with in book one. Like you had Korra, I mean, sorry, you had Mako and Asami, and they
Mm-hmm.
actually had some good chemistry. And then you had Korra and Bolin, and they seemed to have like good chemistry. Like there was that one episode where they had like a belching contest. Remember that?
Right, right.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know why they felt like they had to do that. I think it might be my fellow Zutara shippers' fault because I think I've heard this, but I don't know if it's confirmed. But the writers wanted to please the Zutara shippers by having a sort of proxy Katara and proxy Zuko together.
Yeah.
Yeah, although I don't know if that's true or not, but it does kind of make sense. Yeah, but me personally, the love triangle, I mean, obviously it's not anything great, but I didn't really bother me more than anything else. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say. You mentioned their relationships in general. Yeah, that's another thing that people talk about is that the team avatar for Legend of Korra isn't as good as good as the original team avatar. Is that what you meant, or am I misreading that?
I mean, I was referring mainly to the romantic stuff, but also I definitely agree with that as well. I think the original team Avatar, I don't know, I think they had more chemistry with each other. I think there was more growth, I feel like, especially with like the original three and Toph when Toph joined the team. So it was just more interesting to see like the chemistry between all the team members grow in the original series. And in Korra, it was sort of like they had growth between the team members, but also it didn't feel as connected. It didn't feel as strong. I mean, for so I maybe it's because of like the whole like fractured structure of like the conflicts, but like especially in season four, like I know the my reaction to the first episode hasn't come out, but there's obviously a 3-year time skip, and it seems like during that time jump, the team Avatar members have just sort of been off doing their own thing, and then at the beginning of season four, they're kind of like, yeah, it's been a while, we should get the original team back together, and it's just like it doesn't feel very connected. I don't know. The team
Yeah,
doesn't feel very
yeah, I know what you
feel
mean.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely, you're definitely right. The original team Avatar, definitely felt more nuclear, and then like you have these four, and like I like them on their own. Maybe not Mako as much. He honestly doesn't seem like he's a very interesting character. But the other three I really like on their own, just together. You don't feel that same sort of kinship that you did with the original Team Avatar. That being said,
Mhm.
what I realized this like months and months ago, thinking about core and daydreaming. Even though I don't feel as connected to the other members of Team Avatar, I feel as connected to like the secondary characters like Tenzin and Janora and like Lin and Suyin Beifong. Like I'll give you an example. Like in book three, when Tenzin is facing off against the Red Lotus, and they have the four of them have him cornered, and Zahir's like, "Give up, it's over." And Tenzin's like, "As long as I'm breathing, it's not over." Like
Right.
that always gives me goosebumps. Like what I'm saying is, even though they may not have done like the primary characters Team Avatar just as good, I think they did a great job with like the secondary characters. The problem is, well, they're secondary characters, so they're not getting as much screen time and they're not playing a central role to the plot. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my point is that like obviously some people who don't like the show will say that you'll try to say that, oh yeah, the characters they're just not as well written. They just don't know what they're doing, but they knew what they were doing. They didn't like forget how to write characters.
I
But I
think
don't know. Do you have any thoughts on like
Yeah,
secondary
I
characters?
I definitely agree. I mean, I think the secondary characters in general, and this might be a little bit unpopular, but I mean, I think the secondary characters in the core are stronger than the secondary characters in the original series.
Wow.
Yeah, I really do, because I think I feel like they add more to what it is that the original series is so focused on the original team and that dynamic between Aang and Katara, Sokka, Toph, like Zuko, like that team is so strong. Like they have a lot of screen time. They take up basically all the screen time, and that is like they're all very well developed characters, and I really like that team. But then in Korra, I feel like they took a little bit away from the team Avatar, to distribute it into the secondary characters. I feel like each of the like Tenzin, Kaya, Bumi, like all the Aang children, and of course Lin, Suyin. I feel like those characters are like I enjoyed watching them probably a little bit more than the secondary characters in the original series. But that's because I feel like they gave them a little bit more this time around.
Yeah, yeah, totally. You mentioned about like growth earlier. I think Janora actually has some pretty great growth. I mean, she in the book
Right,
one,
right,
she's just kind of there, but like by book two, she really starts to grow into her own. She helps Korra go into the spirit world. You know, she gets astral projection, and so I think her arc is like a really good example of what I'm talking about as far as like secondary character growth. One thing I wanted to mention that you made me think of was the villains in Legend of Korra. Like we have some pretty good villains, I
right.
think. I think the only really good villain we had from Last Airbender was Azula, but again, you can't really count Zuko and Iroh as villains. Not really. I wasn't a big fan of Ozai. If I'm being honest, he just kind of seemed like a kind of a cliched mustache twirling cartoon villain, like in the finale when he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna burn down the whole Earth Kingdom just because reasons." I'm like,
Right, right.
really? Like I remember first time seeing that show, I was like, "Wow, really? Okay." Yeah, I mean, we have some really cool villains. I think Amon was probably the coolest. A lot of people love Zahir. My personal favorite is Kuvira, and you're gonna see her in book four. You haven't seen book four
Oh
yet,
yeah.
but she's my personal favorite. I don't, what do you think of the villains so far?
Honestly, I would say the villains, like I feel like they put more emphasis on growing and developing the villains in Korra.
Making them feel
Like
like real people. Like
yeah, they feel like real. I mean, they did it with the Fire Nation soldiers in the original series in terms of like making them like giving them interactions and making them seem human, and they always do a very good job of like giving the villain's personality, or like the antagonist personality. And I think that they did it really well with especially like the dark team avatar under Zahir in season 3 of Korra. They had some really good moments between like Minghua and Guzan, the lava guy. I just like I definitely think the villains in Korra are at least better than Ozai. I know Azula was obviously a fantastic villain, but yeah, I agree. I think Ozai wasn't very interesting. I think he was just a very generic sort of like power hungry, really super OP, final boss kind of character. But yeah, I think my personal favorite so far is probably still Amon. I mean like that scene with him like being able to stand up to bloodbending, especially before I knew that he was what's his name, Tarlok's brother. That
Bartok.
was that like that really yeah that scene really got me excited because I was like, who is this guy? Like I was so intrigued by Amon and his backstory, and yeah, I would definitely say he's my favorite out of the core villains so far.
Speaking of goosebumps, there's that one scene when oh god, what's Tarlok kidnaps Korra and he comes upstairs and Amon is there with his benders and
Oh
he
yeah,
tries
that's the scene.
bloodbending.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, he tries bloodbending them and Amon just keeps on walking. He's like, what are you? And he's like, I am the solution. I freaking love that moment.
yeah, that scene is incredible.
Yeah. Speaking of Amon, some people say that I just want to mention this because this is a thought I had recently, but some people say he's like kind of wearing a hat on top of a hat with like him being able to take bending away and also blood bend. And I realized something. It's not really that case because it's not like the two are separate. He can take bending away because he's such a good blood bender. Um,
Right.
I don't know if you ever had that thought. I actually had that thought honestly when I first watched the series. But do you ever have that?
Have that.
Like,
Well,
did
I
you
mean,
ever
like
think he was wearing a hat on top of a hat?
I think he there was a lot of like twists and turns with Amon. He was always full of surprises. I had to like sort of process the fact that he was doing like taking people's bending way through blood bending. Because I was like, how is he doing that if he's not the Avatar? And then when the explanation came, it took a while for me to for me to process that for sure. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think he's just there was so many surprises with him, like the revelation, of course, that he is Yakon's son, and then that he takes people's bending away through blood bending. And there's just a lot of great moments with him where you just sort of felt your jaw drop. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That being said, one thing I've noticed is that not only do I think people can misrepresent Korra, like some of the arguments against the show I can understand. Like I can understand if people are annoyed by the love triangle. I get that. But there are
Mhm.
some arguments that I don't get. Like some people don't like the technology jump between the shows, but it's like in Last Airbender, you had the Fire Nation with tanks and steamships, and 70 years later, is it that hard to imagine that they have like 1920s era cars? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so there's that. I think people can wear blinders when it comes to the original show, and what I mean is that like they can hold it in such a high regard that they kind of they don't see some of the problems. Like I mentioned the finale earlier, where Ozai is like gonna burn down the whole Earth Kingdom, and it's like if you think about it, the Earth Kingdom is like the size of Asia, and he's on a blimp going maybe 50 miles an hour, and Sosin's comet is only there for one day, so he has
Right.
a day to zigzag across all of Asia in order to burn it down, going 50 miles an hour.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't know if it's. I always imagined the Avatar world was a bit smaller than ours. I don't know if I envisioned the Earth Kingdom as big as Asia necessarily, but I definitely thought it was. I never really thought about that because it's a pretty big landmass to go through in just a day.
yeah, I mean, even if the Earth Kingdom was like, or if their world should be about the same size as ours, because like I don't know, gravity seems to be about the same. So I don't know, but one counter argument I can think of is maybe he has like a whole bunch of fleets. Like we're only seeing one, but it's like they never hinted that, and they would take a really long time to build all those ships, and they've only had them since that one episode towards the end of book one. You know, where the Northern Air Temple episode. I don't know. Another thing would be like maybe Sozin's comet is going to help the fire spread, but this comet only enhances the ability of fire benders. It doesn't make fire, more fiery or whatever. So, when's the last time you heard of a fire spreading across an entire continent? I don't know, stuff like that. Korra herself, the character, gets a lot of hate. And personally, I actually, even though I prefer Last Airbender over Legend of Korra, I prefer Korra the character over Aang. I think it's just
Mhm.
because she screws up, and a lot. I feel like I could just relate to her more. But like, my point is that people can hold Aang up to such a lofty degree, but he makes his own mistakes. Like in the beginning of the show, like the third episode, he finds out they get to the Southern Air Temple. He finds out that his people have been wiped out, and there's this war been going on for 100 years. And the next episode, he goes to Kyosho Island to ride the giant koi fish.
Right.
And it's like,
It,
dang, there's a world war going on. Come on.
yeah, I mean, I definitely would say if I haven't actually done this, but if I were to make like a tier list of all the characters from Avatar, I would not put Aang as an S tier character. I mean, I think he's like maybe like A tier, but he's definitely very like protagonisty. Like he's very like, which is kind of like how it has to be because he's the sort of like the focus of the show, and he has to be sort of like happy, and he has to do all these things right. And I feel like with Korra they took more liberties with exploring like the faults of what faults a protagonist can have. And I think I would definitely agree with you. I think Korra is definitely more interesting than Aang because Aang is as just like a character is very just sort of vanilla if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean.